As your Fallout 4 playthrough starts to enter the mid to late game, you'll slowly start transitioning from fighting raiders to fighting your character's limited carrying capacity. With the large amount of junk and all the legendary weapons that you'll swear you'll find a good use for, eventually your character's going to get pretty weighed down. Sometimes it feels like you just need the sole survivor to hold a couple more pounds. Can't be that much to ask, right? I mean, how strong is the guy anyway? Fallout 4 has a pretty easy formula for calculating your carrying capacity. You start out with a base of 200 pounds, then you get an additional 10 pounds for each level of your strength stat. This means that the chems you take and the alcohol you drink will increase your strength, which ends up having a short-term effect on how much junk you can be lugging around. If you want a longer-term solution to your hoarding issue, there are also some perks that'll give you a fixed boost to your carrying capacity. Strong Back gives you 50 pounds of extra room, and Lone Wanderer can boost it up another 100 pounds if you choose to travel the waste without a companion. You can also add some pockets to a lot of the armor sets that you can modify at workbenches, which can boost that big number up just a tad bit further. Now, this is all fine and dandy, but assuming I just walk straight out of the vault with 1 strength and 210 pounds of carrying capacity, how much is the Sole Survivor really stacking up? Now, there is a big elephant in the room. When it comes time to pick your protagonist to roam the Commonwealth with, you have the chance between Nate and Nora. Without trying to bring conversations regarding strength differences between men and women, there is one key factor, and that is their previous occupation. Before the bombs fell and put it all on pause. Nora was an attorney, whilst Nate had just finished his service with the military. Whilst I'm sure Nora was a strong force in the courtroom, some of the data I have regarding strength comes from the US Army. So, moving forward, I will assume the sole survivor is Nate, and Nora took an objection pretty hard.
Objection!
Nate's age is never explicitly stated, but I can take a rough guess. He served in the military, and long enough to be asked to speak at the Veterans Hall. He was then able to meet Nora, settle down, get married, and have a kid. Based on this, I'm going to put him anywhere from 30 to 35. So we have a 30-ish-year-old man with combat experience, who's apparently incapable of holding on to just one more fan. Come on, I need the screws. We also have a 210-pound weight limit, and a question of just how realistic is that? Well, the Army has some tests that you have to pass in order to serve and stay in service, known as the Army Combat Fitness Test. It is a set of physical trials meant to assure that you are fit to serve our country as we go serve justice to those dirty red commies in Alaska. The test is constantly changing, with requirements being added, shifted, and reworked. I'm going to assume that the 2019 ACFT will serve a good baseline, at least for the general fitness expected of a soldier in the 2070s. On the 2019 test, there is a deadlift stage, in which the participant has to lift the most they can for 3 reps. The lifts that are required are broken down into 3 tiers. 1 weight for the moderate jobs, 1 weight for the significant jobs, and 1 weight for the heavy jobs. And it would appear as the sole survivor has been keeping up his gym routine, as the minimum weight for that heavy job is 200 pounds, so Nate is coasting 10 pounds above that standard mark. This is the minimum, however, and to be fair, we're also looking at the minimum stats for our man Nate. Let's bump him up to around a mid-game build with around 6 strength. We can assume he's roaming around alone and has taken rank 1 of the Lone Wanderer perk, which gives him an extra 50 pounds of carry weight. He's also shelled out the special points to get Strong Back rank 2, which will tack on 50 more. This gives Nate a carrying capacity of 360 pounds, which we can start to weigh against some real-world metrics. When you start to move outside of specifically set-in-stone weight requirements, it starts to become less of an actual number and more of the percentage of your body weight. Again, we run into the issue of no real set-in-stone numbers, especially for how our man weighs. There's literally a slider in the create a character that basically lets you pick your own weight. So, I guess that's a question about the player more than anything else. Do you view the protagonist as a mirror image of yourself, or instead a better you that you can strive to achieve? Do you view your real self as too heavy or too light and wish to escape to a world in which you can be just right? Or do you wish to face your demons in order to allow yourself to become properly immersed? Personally, I always pick my exact proportions. Seeing as there is such a wide variety, I grabbed the average for a male in the Army, which is around 180 pounds. Using this chart I pulled from this incredibly reliable website called strengthlevel.com. I was able to put our sole survivor firmly in the intermediate category. He can lift 360 pounds, which is 2 times his body weight. But I don't want to be just an intermediate. I want to be elite. In order to get to this elite tier, he would have to hit the 3 times mark. This will give us a target of 540 pounds of junk rolling around in his back pocket. If we bump our man up to 10 strength, we get to 400. Pack on another rank of Lone Wanderer, and we get 50 more pounds of wiggle room that allows us to coast up to 450. We're now on the hunt for 90 more pounds. We can give our armor some deep pockets that gets us up to 490. After this, we need to start hunting for some more strength points. There's a perk called Solar Powered that boosts your strength by 2 points during the day. So it looks like if you're trying to beat your PR, no more late night gym sessions. That midday sesh is going to be kind of rough, however, as you'll need to be drinking and doing drugs. In particular, if you drink a bottle of whiskey and down some buff out on the way over, you'll get 2 special points each. That brings our final total carrying capacity up to 550 pounds. And I call that pretty firmly elite. You can get that number higher with things like legendary armor, but come on, nobody likes an overachiever. The current deadlift record was set by Bjornsson?
Hafþór Julius Björnsson.
Yeah, so he's pretty strong. And he was able to lift 1,104.5 pounds. So Nate's got to hit the gym to get to that level. Or does he? That number is for the deadlift for a single rep in perfect competition condition. And not only is the survivor hitting 550 all over the place after being on ice for 200 years, he's not just lifting that weight, he's strolling around with it. Looking back to the strongman competition, they have a sport known as the farmer's walk, where the athlete has to walk 20 meters holding as much weight in their hands as fast as they can. The record for this is only 660 pounds, and that's for 20 meters. Our man could just keep walking. Looking to a longer distance, the only evidence I could see for a record of this nature was set by a former Olympian who walked a mile. He did it with 195 pounds. The sole survivor can carry over 2.5 times as much for as long as he wants, and he can even run with it. And running is a completely different story. Running with added weights is a fairly common practice known as rucking, but unfortunately the record isn't really how much weight you can carry, but instead is how far and how fast you can run with the weight. The heaviest weighted record I could find is a marathon run with 100 pounds of extra baggage. The recommendation for your safety is to never break 30% of your body weight, and the US Army also rolls with that same number. Nate can do it with 300%. The Army also gives a number for walking around, which they suggest should not break 45% of your total body weight. And if we just care about walking around, none of this really matters. You see, when you break that elusive carry weight, the protagonist doesn't just sit down and give up. You get over-encumbered. This means that you cannot sprint, nor can you fast travel. You're free to keep walking around at a slightly slower speed. Hey, but if you don't like walking around slower, just take Strong Back Rank 3, where all of a sudden you can run again, even if you're encumbered. As long as you have the 6 strength points required to get Strong Back ranked up that high, nothing really matters. In fact, how much weight can the sole survivor sprint around with when they have this perk? An infinite amount of weight. This means that their muscles have to generate an infinite amount of energy. With this infinite energy, they would be producing miniature black holes within their biceps. One misjudged punch, and the world comes to an end for the second time.
This photograph was taken from an airplane at 50 miles. The width of the fireball at this time, about 3 seconds after detonation, was 4 miles. The frame size of the picture is 6 by 8 miles.
With this knowledge, I'm going to stay away from melee builds, and also stop giving Nate so much flack for making me leave some pocket watches behind. Thank you all for watching. Google thinks I really want to join the army right now, and I think I'm like 1 step away from the recruiters just breaking down my door, so a like would be appreciated. Subscribe to catch more stuff like this, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.